Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steve Seepersod coming to you from the campus of Binghamton University on behalf of the Alumni Association. Welcome to Binghamton Success Week. Today's webinar is one of three programs that we have taking place this week to help you advance in your career. And each one of these programs is going to have advice from Binghamton University alumni who are very eager and very passionate about helping others to move ahead. It should be a great week of programming. So thank you for signing up. We've had a great interest in all of these programs. Over 100 people registered for today's webinar and Thursdays. And we have a panel event happening in New York City tomorrow, and that should be well attended as well. So thank you, because Binghamton Success Week cannot be successful without you. And it's a great thing that we're able to offer. So moving on to talking about how today's program is going to work, we will have a presentation from our featured speaker, and we are happy to take your questions all throughout the program. So start sending them in now, because as I said, we have quite a lot of people who will be tuned in to watch the webinar and only an hour to work with. So get your questions in as soon as you can. You can send them in as comments on Facebook or on the microsite. I'll also put up a graphic that has my email address from time to time, as long as it doesn't step over whatever graphics we're showing. And you are welcome to send me email with your questions, and we will mix these in during the program and then certainly at the end. And I'll just pull up our website and check that out after the show, of course, not during, unless you're really good at multitasking. But the website has a lot to offer in terms of career development programs that we offer at the Alumni Association. We have LinkedIn groups, we have an online mentoring program, there's Career Shift, all sorts of different ways that you can take advantage of what we have to offer. And so I strongly encourage you to do that. Check out our website after this program is done at 1 o'clock Eastern at binghamton.edu/alumni. So now let's go ahead and talk about bringing in our featured speaker for today. Rachel Serwetz is a member of the class of 2013, and she's a CEO and founder of WOKEN, and will tell us about that as well as her background, and has a lot of experience as a career coach helping people to make transitions. And so that's certainly what this week is about, and helping people to make the next step make the next step up in their career, pivoting from one field to another based on where they see their life going in the future. And certainly we'll have a lot of good advice for you between now and 1 o'clock. And also a point of pride about Rachel, she is going to be one of our bold 10 under 10 honorees, and we'll be giving out our awards in New York City on May 4th. And if you haven't signed up for that event and want to join us, there is still certainly time to join the party, and we would love to see you there. Rachel, thank you so much. Welcome to the show, and we'll turn it over to you.
Sounds good. All right. I am going to present my screen. Let's see. I'm going to make sure to share the right thing here. And so Steve, just let me know if there's any issues, but I think we look good. So I'm going to dive right in. And today we are going to be talking about making a career pivot. But as Steve said, please ask any and all questions. Holler away. I can answer any career questions you have. So super quickly, who am I? What is my journey? I did go to Binghamton, and I started out at Goldman Sachs and then Bridgewater Associates. I was in operations and then HR within the world of financial services. I eventually moved to do HR research at Aon Hewitt, and then I did my coaching training through NYU and got certified through the International Coach Federation. I did a tech MBA at NYU Stern, and then I did career coaching through a variety of organizations: WeWork, Flatiron School, Columbia University, Project Activate, and Slate. I also taught an entrepreneurship class for 3 years at Binghamton as well. And for the past 5.5 years, I have been building my own business, WOKEN. So we are here to help any and all professionals to really be thoughtful and intentional with every career decision. In a nutshell, that's what we do. So whether you are clarifying your path, upskilling, personal branding, job searching, networking, interviewing, advancing, pivoting, you name it, mindsets, accountability, we're here for all the career efforts and challenges that you may face. So that's me. Today, we have a lot of different things we're going to go through and really just helping you feel supported in your career goals and career changes that you may be making. So I'm going to just start with a tiny bit of context. Disengagement at work is unfortunately common. And so if you're not feeling like you're jiving with your current path, whether it's your current role or your previous roles, know that it's normal. While that might not be the most positively, illuminating statistic, it is okay to feel like there's an area for opportunity. So, I say that just so you understand that it's not just you, you're not alone, and it might be just simply part of kind of the way the world of work is right now. That being said, there are ways for you to take control and implement those areas for improvement. So I'm going to teach you one of many frameworks, but one of those quick frameworks that I'll give you is role, industry, and environment. We're going to get to that again a little bit later, but that is one very quick way that I can help you to start thinking about where can I optimize or where can I improve in my path, whether it's the role, the industry, and the environment. And sometimes it's 2 out of 3 or all 3 of those categories. Now, why is it important to feel aligned with your career path? There's research, as you can see, about how we're sleepwalking through careers, how there's a purpose gap. We want you to optimize your well-being, your wealth potential, and really just the amount of productivity and innovation and creativity that you can have and the impact that you can have in your career. But really, it does affect you personally, and it affects those around you, and it even affects companies and societies to, when we're seeing attrition and we're seeing the productivity and the innovation, we want you to be in the right seat so that you can make your greatest impact and feel good doing it and feel aligned with what path is the right fit for you. And, I'm here to tell you that it is feasible to figure out what that is, right? So why is it so important to find a path that you align with? Well, studies show that you'll actually get better at that path. You'll make more money, and you'll make more money faster. It actually also makes your job search so much more efficient and effective. Oftentimes we jump into the job search without knowing what it is we really want. And so it might feel like you're delaying the job search, but if you clarify what your best path is first, it's going to make it so much easier to figure out, what am I targeting? What am I going after? And how am I going to make for a compelling interview and a compelling story that makes sense? It's really doing the upfront work to figure out what direction is the best fit for me. It's also going to make your growth more organic in terms of the development that you have over the course of your career, right? So if we're intentional about your next step, what's going to happen for the second and third and fourth step after that, it's going to be so much easier to pave that path really organically. And it's going to feel better, right? So when you're in a path that's not aligned with you, it can feel sticky and it can feel uncomfortable. And, it brings up some of those, not great feelings. So when you have certainty as to which path is a fit for you, it feels better, right? We want you to operate and focus on, what am I great at and how can I make my greatest impact, versus worrying about where should I be and where do I belong and where do I fit, right? We want your focus to be on the impact and all of that good stuff, right? So one of the biggest questions is, how do I just figure out if I even want to change? I think a lot of people feel this in between, and then they're just simply not sure how to know how they're feeling and what to do about it. And it's just that in between, right? So first and foremost, I would just ask yourself, how long have I been considering this? How engaged do I feel in my current path? Do you feel like you want something more, you're craving something, but maybe you don't know what the future path could be? Sometimes without the vision or the clarity of what you want, it can sometimes stunt you from figuring out what is my next step. So we just stay in that in-between feeling. I would ask yourself, is my potential and my challenge being fulfilled? You can even journal on, what do I need and what do I want and what do I deserve out of a career? And then how does my current trajectory stack up? And so you want to start to identify some specifics of, what am I missing? What am I craving? What do I need more of that I'm not seeing right now? And the mindset is super important, right? So is there something, a limiting belief getting in your way? Do you have hesitations? Really just understanding how you're feeling. Sometimes it's subconscious. And so you want to understand, how you're feeling and figure out how to get comfortable and, become a little open-minded, become a little brave, become a little creative. Now, you don't have to just launch into action before you feel ready. There is a way of going from I have these hesitations to I'm feeling ready. But uncovering how you feel and what's uncomfortable for you is step one. And then how can you challenge yourself to explore and learn and just even ask yourself how you're feeling and just like be open to this conversation with yourself or this conversation with other people to start navigating, what could be the next steps, right? It's never a quick Band-Aid, fix for like A to Z and it's all resolved. It's a journey and you have to start to become a little more comfortable with this conversation, like I said, with yourself or with others. So getting comfortable with change. I think a lot of people are just, we might, assume, okay, this making a pivot is going to mean so many big things that I can't afford or I can't handle. So really ask yourself, what would it mean if I were to change paths? And by the way, we may not even know yet, but what are you not so sure about? Is it you're working remotely and you'd have to work in person or vice versa? Is it you think you'd have to move locations? Is it a commute? Is it a salary? Is it something having to do with your family? Is there something practical about the change that is, on your mind? And so really jotting down these factors, and these can become questions that become answers and become information, but understanding factors of what's important to you, those factors don't have to be something that hold you back. Rather, they can be factors of what are you needing? What are you looking for? And what's important to you? And how can we incorporate that into your exploration process? Now, learning is my favorite thing. It is, really the secret to most things, but career exploration is really all about how do I learn about myself and how do I learn about the roles and the industries that are out there and do those two things simultaneously, and really just taking comfort in the fact that you can be in this exploration mode or phase before you apply to any jobs or before you quit your job or before you do anything. There's this middle ground of I'm just simply figuring it out and I'm gaining that certainty and I'm gaining information to know what's right for me. And if you're still not at a point where, say you've learned a little bit about some options, but you're like, oh, I don't think this is right, then guess what? The exploration process isn't done yet. So there is a world where you are going to figure out which role and which industry is right for you. And you have to keep investing a little time into that exploration. And then you will find, if you understand what's important to you and who you are and what you're looking for, you need to keep staying in that exploration mode until you feel that sense of, okay, this feels fitting for me based on what I'm like, right? So getting your questions answered and being open to pivoting based on what you hear. You might learn about things you thought would be good that actually are not a fit. You might learn about things you never even heard of before. So there's so much that goes on in the exploration process. You also want to think about your support system. So again, sometimes it can be subconscious, but if you have a partner or family that you're taking care of or whatever it may be, sometimes we're just worried about how those around us and our loved ones feel about what we do. So you want to ask yourselves, how are my family and friends influencing me, whether positively or negatively? Do I need to have a conversation? How and where can I garner support to simply just explore? And remembering you can explore before you act, but having, the support system around you is absolutely a critical component. So
I'm sorry, Rachel,
yes,
I had
please
just
tell
have
me.
a
Yes,
question for you before you go on to the next
yes,
slide, and
yes.
maybe there's something in here that you may be coming to later. I'm just curious how much you run into this in your own practice as a coach, people who are reluctant to make a change because at some level it's admitting that the situation just isn't working out and they have some kind of a remorse for the
Yeah.
decisions they made and landing the position they're in. And it's tough always in any situation, whether it's a job or a relationship or something else, to say, look, this just isn't doing it for me. I have to make a change. And then you
Yeah.
feel some bad feelings about that.
Yeah. 100%. Fear, regret, any number of things. But you just look, this is where it comes back to a little bit of that bravery and vulnerability and open-mindedness and finding support so that you can get comfortable with these hard things. And how much harder would it be to stay in a situation that isn't right? So you have to ask yourself, like, how long am I willing to wait? And what can I do to find support? Like, I think people forget that there's an in-between. Say you have a coach, a mentor, a peer, a therapist, whoever is supporting you, a partner. Can you just simply explore and acknowledge and be explicit with how you feel so that you can figure out what it means and like find a way to get yourself ready with the openness to exploring what's next. So like being in that phase of your mindset first and foremost, I always say it's mindset, accountability, and practical strategy. Don't feel like you have to jump into job search. Be in the moment of mindset, whether that means I need to have conversations with myself, I need to journal and reflect, or I need to have conversations with a loved one, or I need to get some sort of professional support. But any and all ways of like getting comfortable with acknowledging that any and all feelings that you have are valid. If you have a feeling, whether it's regret or whatever it may be, it's okay to feel that, but try not to just be in your own mind space about it, because when we don't allow others in, whether it's acknowledging it, writing it down, saying it out loud, and finding one source of support, that's really going to be the way that you tell yourself it's okay to feel this way, and there's going to be an ability to make progress, and there's going to be a way to get comfortable and figure out what this means. But if you're feeling something and you're ready for the change, but you're not, or maybe you're not ready for the change, but you want it, that's the perfect moment to say, how and where can I just simply have support in this? But yes, Steve, it is very common to feel that way. And so, yeah, the key is how can we really just make it okay to say any and all of those feelings are normal, okay, and valid, and give yourself the credit to say, this feeling is actually an opportunity, right? It's a window for improvement. So we can't hold ourselves back based on the past. We have to look at today and tomorrow. And, even if that means taking baby steps, even if that means spending weeks or months just to get ready, and then eventually you take all the practical steps to pivot. But being in the space to just work on your mindset first and foremost is absolutely step one. All right, I'm going to forge forward. Cool. So actually this next slide is actually all about limiting mindsets. So I'm actually going to try to debunk some of the common limiting mindsets. And, the one we just talked about is absolutely a common one. And I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to try to give you a new framework so that we can sort of replace a limiting belief with something a little bit more constructive. So stress is super normal with careers. Stress means that we're placing importance on something, but you just don't want to operate out of the stress, because say you're feeling stressed, what are we going to do? We're going to open up a job boards and job hop and apply to the next best thing, and the grass is greener. Instead, you want to take a step back and you want to ask yourself, what could my process be? How do I take this step by step? Is it getting support on my mindset? Is it, maybe I just need to clarify my direction before I apply? So when you give yourself a process and a moment to take a step back, you just want to make sure that when you're feeling that stress, you don't act out of it, but rather you sort of zoom out and say, what's my goal here? What do I really need? And how do I, incorporate some steps to get there? A lot of people think about security in terms of job choices. I'm here to sort of say that security is very, very, very important, but it can't be 100% your only part of the decision. I have seen people who just choose a job based on, oh, it's secure, but it has nothing to do with my interests. It's not going to be so secure if it doesn't align with you, if you're not good at it, if you don't enjoy it, or better yet, if you hate it. So you have to incorporate what is the secure path, but also what is a fit for me and what is interesting to me. The most, the candidate who really wants to be there is the one who's going to get hired. The employee who's really just jiving and leading the team and you're really engaged at work, you're going to be the one getting those promotions and wanting to be productive and innovative. So we can't ignore who we are as a professional and our affinities and our strengths. We also need to think about secure pathways. All of it is important. A lot of times people say, oh, I can't do that. I would never be able to learn that, or whatever, feasibility and capabilities of, what you're capable of. Give yourself the benefit of the doubt to understand what's out there and what it would mean to pivot into certain pathways, and understanding requirements, understanding skills, and truly getting the nuances and that information before you decide whether you can or can't do something, right? Information first. And, like Steve was saying, we often hold ourselves back by our past of like, oh, I've only ever done this, so I can only ever do this. Your story is so much more important than just what you've done. There's often so many more transferable skills that you have than you may even realize. And your understanding of what role is a fit for you, your understanding of what that role is and why you're going to be great at it and why you align with it and what that role really means is going to go such a farther way than a candidate who's in the room just telling them what they want to hear, who doesn't have that energy behind it. So really asking yourself the interview questions essentially before you get to the interview so that you have genuine, authentic, compelling answers is going to go such a long way. So don't just hold yourself back based on what you've done before. It's okay to zig and zag and evolve with where you want to go. As long as that story makes sense to you, it's going to make sense to other people. A lot of people make decisions about the long term. What am I going to be in 10, 20, 30 years or longer? I like to actually over-index about 60, 70% of your decision on the short term. What role in industry would be a great fit for you right now? And then understand where that role could lead in the future. But the industries are going to change, the jobs are going to change, you're going to change. So I wouldn't sort of say like, where do I want to be in the future and how do I reverse engineer that? I would say, what's a strong fit for me right now? And then know where it could set you up to go in the future. A lot of people say to me, I'm open to any role, I'm open to any industry. That to me is a signal that we need to do a little bit more learning and reflection and exploration. It means if you're open, it means you're not sure. It usually means you're not sure which role or industry is the best fit for you. So it's okay. And it's very possible that there may be 2 or 3 choices, but you want to understand the confidence in the prioritization of what is the best possible fit for you. So I like to say, be picky. I know that might sound really, narrow, but I'd rather you find more of the right thing than just assuming that being open to so many options is the only way to have volume, right? So understand your best fit direction and go find as many of those roles and companies within that industry that is aligned with you. A lot of times people make choices based on just what they're aware of. It's okay to say, I don't know. There's actually over 160,000 unique roles in the US alone. So you don't have to learn every single one, but it's okay to say, I'm exploring, I'm learning more, I'm looking into A, B, C, and D. Even better yet, if you're in a conversation and you're honest and you let people meet you where you're at, they're going to better help you. They're going to make those introductions and see how they can actually help you figure it out based on the options that you are looking into. Or maybe you're not even sure what you're looking into, but you might describe a problem that you're looking to solve or a mission that you care about. And then the roles and industries that play into that become something you uncover or explore. So it's okay to learn and acknowledge what you're not sure of, right? A lot of people think, oh, I have to just interview well. It's a thing to check the box. Remember, it's a conversation. Who do you want to converse with about what, where, when, why, how, right? So networking and interviews are actually a mirror into the work you're going to be doing. So don't just, make it a thing that you have to tell them what they want to hear. Really be intentional and proactive to say, what is the right room and what is the right conversation for me to even be in? And what conversation do I want to be having? A lot of people are just saying applying. It's all about job applications. I'm a big fan of exploring, right? Do not forget the power and the impact that you can to research and network and learn and reflect about what role and what industry is the right fit for you versus just solely spending all day applying, right? We often look at those around us and sometimes we compare ourselves, which is normal and natural, but you really want to remember that you're the one who's going to live and breathe that job every day. There might be a job that someone else is doing that they may look really, attractive or sexy, but it's, what do you find interesting, right? It might not sound a certain way. There might be stereotypes or reputations about certain jobs, but whatever you find interesting and fitting, if you're great at it, that's really what matters most is how are you going to feel doing that job every day? If other people can be a source of positive information and inspiration to you, that's fine. But if you're noticing people who are influencing you maybe negatively, then you might want to look at who am I following on these social media accounts and things like that. Really make sure that those around you are a source of support and help more than anything else. And fear is so normal in these decisions. So I always say, replace fear with learning. If you have an open question or a hesitation or nerves, how can you turn those things into questions and then either ask those questions and gather information from other sources or ask yourself those questions and reflect. Learning and reflection is the key to really using that fear as a tool, using it as an opportunity to say, I need more of something, and I'm going to be on this journey to figuring it out and getting more information and getting more answers from myself and from others to figure out what I need and what's right for me. So using it as an opportunity rather than having that fear make you feel stuck, right? Yeah, Steve, jump in.
Yes, I'm starting to get into the fun part now with questions coming from the audience. But before we get to that, I just want to say that there was so much in that last slide I really felt like resonated with me personally, having been through different journeys like this, where at one point I was open, like you had the word open on the slide, I'll do whatever. And I found it really spun my wheels, and I was just shooting things in so many directions that there was just no focus at all, and a lot of time got wasted. And focusing on interviewing well, I'm like, let's just sell, sell, sell. I'm going to show you're the right person for the job. And when I really felt like I put the extra energy into making that happen, those were the interviews where I never got calls back afterwards. But if I went in and sort of even tone like, this is me, and if you like me, great. And if you don't, you don't, and I'll just go somewhere else. Those were the times where I got calls back. And I was like astounded to see that worked, because
you
it
were
was
being
always the mindset of
yourself.
trying to sell. And
Yeah, because
yeah,
they need to know who they're hiring. So if you're like sounding fake of like, I need to be robotic and I need to do this thing that I think they want to hear, they're not going to get the sense authentically that they got to know you. How are you going to build confidence that you're going to get hired? How can they be confident in who they're hiring? The only way is to be your unique self, and knowing it's okay to have strengths and weaknesses. Like, the only way they're going to be confident in making that hire is like if you're authentic, if you're self-aware, and if you let them get to know you. So yeah, you can't force it, you can't fake it. A lot of people think we have to go about interviews that way.
And now to the questions. The first one, does the same philosophy work for job career changes within the same company?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So internal mobility is great. It's a great, wonderful tool. If you are looking to pivot, you want to ask yourself the same questions about what role is a good fit for me, and then absolutely explore what your company has to offer. You could get involved with projects, get involved with the right teams, build relationships. You might shadow, you might volunteer. Can you lend a few extra hours to some team or some project that you want to get involved with? And eventually, formally, can you have a conversation, whether it's with HR or whether it's with your manager, about what work you want to get more involved with, whether it's on your team, how do you optimize the projects, or eventually, is there a world that you can move teams internally? That's a real thing, and it's absolutely a wonderful opportunity to explore. Every company culture is a little bit different in terms of how that may look and feel and work, but absolutely, it's something to be open to. And even my time at Goldman, I was so involved with HR stuff. Like, I was just asking myself, what problems do I care about? I wasn't saying, oh, I'm interested in HR. I said, let's improve our team's culture across the globe. Let's improve our skill development as it relates to our performance review and expectations. I did all these different things. I even was recruiting at Binghamton. I was doing things that I felt were interesting and important, and I noticed things that were interesting to me. And luckily enough, I was empowered to take on those projects. So 100%, if you find opportunities at your current organization, totally take the bull by the horns, as they say. And look, you want to feel you're doing the right thing, and whether you have to, I don't want to say ask for permission, but do you need to get buy-in on a certain proposal or idea or project? Absolutely go through the right channels to make sure you have the right support. But actually something that I did was I went through an affinity group. We had a women's network through Goldman, and that's where I actually built and launched a lot of the skill development projects that I wanted to build. So, be creative as to how you can hopefully sort of work on the things you want to work on. Maybe there's even opportunities outside of your company. That's another great way to pivot. I actually volunteered through a nonprofit doing career coaching before I ever got coaching training. And that's just something I wanted to get involved with. And that helped me learn about myself, what's interesting to me, and how can I go just do it, right? I was showing up to conferences to try to understand the world of social impact. You want to put in the effort, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how to do career exploration, but it's a little bit of research, it's a little bit of networking, and it's a little bit of that hands-on experiential learning and a lot of reflection. If you do all these different things, you're going to figure out what path is the right fit for you, but absolutely taking those opportunities to get involved where you want to get involved, 100% find a way to make that happen.
It's really interesting sometimes to see how those sort of sidetracks help you to move along to where you want to go, for lack of a better way to say it, where sometimes that volunteer opportunity or the thing that doesn't seem like it's going to have an application somewhere winds up being very much in line with the next thing that you're meant to do. So it's kind of fun when life works out that way sometimes. One more question, and then I'll bring the slide deck back up. One of my biggest setbacks is feeling I'm not qualified for a job in what my passions truly are. I feel that I would need to go back to school, and choosing a program and path is overwhelming, not to mention that it'll be costly, and I'm not currently working. Can you maybe speak to this a bit?
Yeah. So making a decision about pivoting is obviously a big one. So like get support, whether it's a coach, a mentor, a peer, whoever it may be, resources to understand how to navigate the journey and to feel supported doing it. There are many thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who do pivot. So while it seems big, it's absolutely not impossible to make a change. I would always give yourself the benefit of the doubt to uncover what is a fit for me first, and then your strategy can be a secondary thing. So for example, if you uncover some sort of path or journey that you think is too big of a change, you can say, what is like the stepping stones of how I could take, incrementally to get there eventually. Or maybe there's a role that's similar that doesn't require going back to school, but at least I could get into the right world or the right space or the right arena or the right industry. So you can still sort of slowly inch your way there, or finding something similar. So learn, explore, reflect first, strategize second. And sometimes there's different ways of building up the skills. You might need just a certification or a boot camp. You might not need graduate school, but you do want to learn first, strategize second, and just know that it's okay to say, look, I do or don't want this level of further education. It can be a personal choice, but you really also just want to think about big picture and where you are in your career and how much time you have left in your career. And I realize that going back to school might seem really big and daunting, but if you truly understood a path really deeply and said, I think this is a thing I could do for the rest of my life, you do want to consider, your big picture here. And it might still be earlier than you think to make that change. But I'm going to show you how to do career path exploration in a way that you can actually get really certain and get really clear about what it is you want. So just know that you can gain that confidence first. And if you're still not sure what path you want, it means you're still going to be in that exploration journey. So there is a way of figuring out like what is the right fit based on the factors of what's important to me and what I'm willing to do, right? So all of these factors are okay. And then you just apply that as you learn about the options of the paths that are out there. So that's my quick answer. All right. So here's a super quick framework to keep in mind. This is helpful if you're ever assessing your current role, your previous roles, or future roles about what it is that's the right fit for you. In an ideal world, you would clarify each of these three things. So function is really about the day-to-day of the work, the style of the work, the projects, the skills, the verbs and action phrases. It really comes down to your affinities, your tendencies, what you're natural at, what you're great at. This is the actions of what's happening throughout your day and throughout your week at your job. The second piece is content. So for example, if you're doing research or training or sales or consulting or whatever it may be, you could do research on a lot of different topics, right? Or, you want to separate the actions from the nature of the work and the content. So content really relates to what topics or problems do you actually care about? What do you find important? What do you find interesting? And then thirdly is the work environment. Where do you thrive? What does it look and feel like? That's the logistics and the pace and the size of the organization. It's also the people and the culture and those intangible values as well. So what we usually talk about is role, industry, culture, but this is how each of those three translates. And a lot of times people munge together the role in the industry. So you really want to make sure to separate those two things because many roles exist in many industries. So sometimes a way of acting on your interests might be, let me just get into that industry and support a mission and a problem and a cause that I care about. But the role that I play in that might be totally different, right? What role makes sense based on your affinities, your tendencies, and what you're great at versus can I be in a sector or in a company that's servicing some sort of people or problem that I care about? So that's two different ways to sort of act on your interests, right? And of course, you want to make sure the environment is the place that you can thrive in as well. Okay, I'm going to keep going for the sake of time, but we can come back to this. Okay, so career exploration, I'm just going to quickly define this. So career exploration is a process that is distinct from and a precursor to the job search. It is a series of steps of learning and reflection so that you can compare, contrast, and clarify which path or which next step. It doesn't have to be at the beginning of your career journey. It could be which next step are you most confident in pursuing next. Why does this have to come before job searching? It's going to make your job search more efficient. It's going to make your interview more effective. And it's going to increase the odds that you're going to feel fulfilled on the job. And that is, of course, what we want. So how do you go about the process? First and foremost, you just want to commit and say to yourself, am I in a moment where I'm ready to go through this journey of exploration? Is that where I'm at right now? And commit to that process. Then you want to reflect on your interests. And the way that you would reflect is basically along these three lines, right? What's your natural at? What are your affinities? What are your tendencies? What are you great at? Secondarily, topics and problems you care about or find important or find interesting. Thirdly, the environment that you thrive in. So you're going to do a lot of that reflection. Then you want to think about options for roles and industries. Here's where many assessments might just spit out an answer, but you really want to think about what roles or industries might be options that are viable or potentially relevant or potentially applicable. Then you're going to do a little bit of research online. Of course, there's so much information available, but most importantly, you are going to network and run informational calls with the people who are in the roles and in the industries that you are considering. Now, there's a way that you have to do this effectively. And actually on my website, I have a lot of tools and tips about how to run these calls really well and what questions to ask. But you really want to meet with these people and understand how to effectively uncover an accurate, deep picture of what are these roles and industries really like. Then you want to go through this pivoting process. So if you set up a few of these informational calls in a given week, and then you synthesize, reflect, and pivot, and you do that week over week for, let's call it between 3 to 8 weeks. It depends on the person's time and pace. That is what gets you to the point of saying, okay, I've understood enough about these paths and I've understood enough about myself that I can actually confidently say this role in this industry in this environment is the right fit for me. That is when you would decide on upskilling opportunities. Is there some sort of project or course or certification or learning program that is worthwhile and reputable for me based on my intended direction? That's also when you can start updating your branding and your materials to be in line with your direction. And of course, that's when you can begin the job search as well. So in a nutshell, this is sort of how you might pursue the exploration process. If you still have options on your radar, learn more and reflect more. People don't always realize there is a world that you get to the point of saying, I actually feel certain. That is feasible. That is possible. You absolutely can and will reach that point if you run this process. So remember, if you have options, it's not to say you can never do that second or third or fourth option. It's a matter of understanding the differences and prioritizing confidently to understand your best fit. I'll quickly touch on just some job search tips, and then I think that's probably the end of my slides, so we can leave the last 20 minutes for questions. But in terms of job search, you really want to ask yourself, are you being transactional versus who do you want to talk to about what, right? Really bring it down to the root and the principles of this job is here to solve problems. This job is here to work with this team. This job is here to achieve these goals and this outcome and this impact. So what interview and what job and what company and what room makes sense for me to sort of go after versus just like, I'm checking the box and I'm doing this without being smart and strategic. Sometimes people are just plugging away. You also want to pivot. You want to learn. You want to network during your job search and be open to reflecting on how it's going. You might learn a lot during the interviews to say, I feel like this wasn't the right interview, or I feel like this wasn't the right role, or I feel like this wasn't the right industry, or I feel like this wasn't the right level or function or team, right? So are you noticing how things are going? The other thing you can notice is how you're doing, right? Are you landing first round, second round, third round? Are there patterns of what you're facing? And is that going to help you uncover how you can adjust your efforts and your approach, right? We can't just do the same thing expecting different results. So you got to reflect, measure, and pivot throughout your job search. And of course, you want to really think about, am I clear in my direction, or am I just applying to anything, right? If you apply to so many different options, it's going to be overwhelming to you and to others. So really, I know it seems counterintuitive, but you can find more volume of the right thing. So being narrow in your search actually really can benefit you. This is a super quick image that basically just shows you want to figure out where in your journey you are maybe facing those patterns or challenges, right? If you're not landing first rounds, you want to think about, am I getting in front of people? Am I only applying online, or am I doing networking? How am I getting my foot in the door? Or if you're landing second round, third rounds and no offers, you want to think about, is this the right role, or do I need to practice how I'm communicating in the interview? So you just want to notice how you're doing, where you're noticing any challenges, and what you can adjust and what you can learn based on any patterns that might be going on in your job search. Okay. Yeah, this is super quick, but I kind of touched on this earlier. Mindset, accountability, practical strategy. As you know, each of these three are super, super, super important. Making sure your mindset is resilient. It's not always going to be a walk in the park, but are you feeling supported? Are you feeling open-minded? Are you feeling like you can learn and adjust and really handle the fact that job search can be hard? Do you have the right support to navigate the mindset that, look, there's going to be ups and downs, right? Have support. It doesn't mean you have to feel this perfect readiness every day. Accountability, we got to put in the time. We've got to put in the effort if we want to see results. And so be creative. Can you hack, co-work and do different things to make it feel easy and feel manageable and, find ways to make it fun and find ways to put in time and have peers around you to support you. And then of course, the strategy. Are you really feeling informed about how to go about this process the best way that you can? So these are my sort of 3 keys to success. And just so everyone knows, this is what I do, is help people through all of these different processes, teach you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, why to do it, where to do it. And please, reach out, stay in touch, follow us, and see, hopefully I can help you. And our website has a ton of free resources as well that I know we're going to send out to you all after the fact. And yeah, I'm happy to sort of use the ending portion here for any and all questions. Hopefully we have a bunch of good questions in the queue. And let me know, Steve, if there's certain things you have for me.
Sure. I have a couple of thoughts and questions while we wait for some more questions to come in by email and through the comment box. We certainly covered quite a lot in a short amount of time, and so it gives us a lot to think about. And so I think about that last slide in the pyramid, and you said there's a reason the mindset's first, and I think about goal setting, and a lot of what people think about in terms of a job search can be very tactical, and what are the steps I have to do. But I guess speak more to the importance of goal setting, because I think about, if you don't know where you want to go or don't set the goal properly, you're going to wind up basically in the same fix that you are now. And I think about a goal being something that it should stretch you, because otherwise you wouldn't need the goal. You're already where you are.
Yeah.
So it should take you somewhere different, but also should be something attainable, because if it's not, you're just going to be frustrated. It's like chasing the horizon. You just never get there. And like the hamster on the wheel, or just any other metaphor that you could throw in for just this incredible frustration.
Well, I like to start small. Sometimes when people, like you said, when people set a goal for, like, I need to do X many hours a week, and then nothing gets done, like, start with, like, what can I literally do in 5 minutes? Maybe you can just organize your to-do list, right? What can I do in 10 minutes? Maybe I can start a spreadsheet to track my target companies or people I can reach out to. And I do a little LinkedIn research and just type in product managers and see who I can find in the jobs that I'm interested in. There are small things you can do. So I would really ask yourself, what can I get done in 5 or 10 or 15 minutes? Another thing is remembering that you can just get organized. I think people jump from A to Z of, like, I have to, like, know what I'm doing. Part of your process can be, like, organizing yourself, planning your time, planning your approach, planning your strategy, maybe learning and gathering some resources, gathering some strategies. There's an element of, like, I need to understand the roles in the industries I'm going after, but you also have to understand, like, job search and how to go about that. So maybe seeking out support so you understand what to do, and then you can start implementing it. So getting organized, getting resources, getting guidance, and just, sort of getting yourself ready and asking yourself, what can you do in just a few minutes, is a way of like starting small and meeting yourself where you're at. The other thing about goals is, first of all, there's the goal of like, what is my direction, roles and industries, which by the way, that may evolve. Start with, here's what I think is a fit for me, and then allow yourself to learn and refine the goals as they start to make more sense to you. There's also goals in the sense of like, how much am I going to be doing in a given week, right? The volume of efforts of networking and job applications. The way I like to set those goals is actually like a minimum and a maximum. So minimum is like bare minimum in a busy week. What do I think I can get done no matter what? Maybe I try to do one networking outreach a week, or maybe I try to do one application a week, or whatever it may be. And then a maximum is kind of like, in a great week, what do I think I can reach? And then at the very least, if you do nothing else, just track what are the goals for the different efforts I can do in a week, and where am I at against my goals? Really simple if you do nothing else. But another key component, just to add another layer, is understanding what goals to set and what to be doing throughout your week. There's applications, but there's networking. Networking is the most important, number one way that people land jobs. Other than that, you have your materials that you can edit and strengthen and improve. You could be doing research to understand more about your target roles and industries. You can be joining events, webinars, workshops, conferences to meet people. It's a networking opportunity. It's also a learning opportunity. You could be doing skill development. You can be doing career exploration. You can reflect. You can measure. You can pivot. There's probably other things I'm leaving out here. But learning about your target paths, as well as doing the job search itself, networking. There's just so many different sort of activities. I really do like a varied approach. So while it might seem like a lot, you can just say, you know what, I'm going to do 20 minutes of skill development a week, or I'm going to do 20 minutes of research a week. You can try to make it small, even though there's a lot to it, but don't, to the best of your ability, like if you're just simply applying with 100% of your time, that's where you might want to take a step back and say, how can I divide my time? What is the balance of different activities or goals that would be the right suite of activities so that I can see results? That's the other element is, yes, setting goals and trying to stick with them, but understanding which goals to set as well. So I know there's a lot to it, but this is why we want you to have support through all of these career goals. You're not alone in this, right? That's the other key component, is just remember it's a lot and it can be hard, but yeah, don't feel like you ever have to go through these processes alone. There are resources here to support you.
And speaking of support, a couple of times during the talk, you mentioned reaching out to a support network. And so what do you think about the idea of going to people in the support network and saying, just have these one-on-one conversations with them and ask, what do you feel I'm good at? What do you feel I could improve on? And we all hate 360 feedback, or many of us don't like that when it comes to performance evaluations at our jobs. But it seems like knowing where those blind spots are really could help us, especially in trying to transition to that next opportunity.
Yeah, well, look, there's feedback you can get about yourself in terms of strengths and weaknesses, and absolutely career exploration requires being honest with yourself, which might mean you need to solicit feedback from others. It also might mean just doing some really hard self-reflection. Every single human, there's things you're natural at, better at, or propensities for what you could get great at. And there's going to be things that are not as natural. So it is important to try to get objective with your own self and your skill set of, how do I delineate what I'm great at, what I'm good at, what I'm not great at, what do I like, what do I not like, what could I get great at? All of these things, whether that means just reflecting and having a coach or a mentor or peer to work with you to reflect on your self-awareness, or gathering some information from others if you need it, absolutely. And then when you're learning about the roles that are out there, you can more easily sort of pair up, okay, what sounds like it makes sense, right? So knowing yourself first and foremost, that way when you hear about these different roles and understand what goes into a typical week for this role, you can more easily relate, oh, that does align with what I'm natural at, or what I'm good at. So yes, absolutely getting that feedback is important. Understanding yourself, super, super important. Setting up these informational calls, you can leverage other people in so many different ways. You can leverage other people who have worked with you to understand yourself. You can also just simply set up these information calls to understand about the roles that you're considering. It is very possible that you don't necessarily need to set up a call to garner their opinion or their advice. You can actually just understand their perspective, their experience, and their information, and make your own opinion based on what you're hearing, based on what you know about yourself. So you can sort of leverage others in the journey. But yes, the willingness to understand yourself honestly is absolutely, we can't avoid that. If we want to figure out our best fit path, we do have to understand ourselves. And there's a lot that goes into that. Sometimes people have imposter syndrome feelings. We may not feel confident. So that is where other people can come into play. Look at past performance reviews, look at projects, look at results, look at impact, look at what work felt natural to you, what work felt like you were just in flow state, what projects did you choose to take on and enjoy the most more than others. So there's more questions I could sort of give you to facilitate that reflection, but that's really where, a coach can come into play, is helping prompt these sort of not memories per se, but the understanding of what's natural for you and who you are. Absolutely. That is half the battle, who you are. And then in relation to what are the roles that exist and what is the best match, right?
I have a question that's come in through the email. Do you have any advice for an introvert who finds the idea of networking terrifying? And I love this question because I'm an introvert and I can get comfortable enough with hosting these shows or speaking to a large group, probably because I feel more in control of the situation, but put me in a one-on-one, and that's a very difficult shift for me sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's a great question. So thank you to the person who sent it in.
Yes, absolutely. I actually have a blog. So my website is iamwoken.com, and I actually have a blog literally about how to handle networking for introverts. I also have a pre-networking meditation. So there's a lot that goes into this answer. Number one is understanding what your actual hesitation is. And this is where you want to work with a coach or a mentor or peer or someone. But sometimes people don't like to ask for help. Some people just feel vulnerable in, just having that moment that's one-on-one. Sometimes it could be any number of things. So really understanding what is holding you back and trying to get support or perspective to understand how to get comfortable with networking as something that is okay to do, and how can I make it feel okay, right? So it really just depends on exactly what the element is about networking that sort of feels uncomfortable. The other way I like to do it for introverts is make it feel more like a process. And I don't mean to say make it less human, but it's okay to send an email where you're writing something and you're making it really authentic. So writing is hopefully a little more comfortable. The other thing is when you chat with somebody, you can do it on the phone. You don't have to video. You don't have to meet up in person. Phone is a great way of saying, I'm just going to focus on what I need to say and what I need to ask, and actively listening. And you can really have a lot of strong information without having to deal with, some of those let's say personable, interpersonal, my eye contact and my body language and all that jazz. You can really just stay focused on, I've got my notes, I've got my list of questions, and I'm just focused on the voice of what I'm hearing right now. So, between sending a really good email, using the phone, and just preparing yourself, you can and should list out 5 to 10 questions that you want to ask them. You can actually go in with that wording ready verbatim. That doesn't mean you have to be robotic, but it actually goes a very long way to say, what is the best phrasing of what I want to ask, and being prepared. And they're going to really appreciate that. And you're going to feel more comfortable in the moment if you don't have to constantly think on your feet. Ideally, yes, you'll still be in the moment. You have prepared questions, but you also want to go with the flow. But preparing is another way to sort of get comfortable and get confident. But yeah, again, sometimes it just comes down to the common hesitations, right? Know that networking is so normal, common, and standard. People, not every single person, but many people like to help and want to help. If your ask is clear and authentic and reasonable about, I'd love to learn from you, for 20 minutes, and show that you're prepared to use their time wisely. What are, 3 to 5 topic areas that you'd want to ask them? Why do you want to learn from them specifically? So if you really show that you've done a little bit of that homework, and again, you don't have to go in with the answers or the information. You just have to go in knowing, what do you want out of our time together? And that's going to make it really easy for someone to be able to say, yes, of course, happy to help. So, getting comfortable with your ask, making it clear, making it authentic, making it prepared, making it thoughtful and intentional, that's going to help you feel like you've done what you can to make it, right, a good, thoughtful process for you and for them. What else? Yeah, just knowing that it's really normal. Like, you're going to ask them for help. They probably ask someone else for help. And guess what? One day someone's going to ask you for help. So this is sort of how the world goes round. How does any professional learn how to get anywhere in this world? We help each other, and we give each other sort of that information and advice and perspective. And, we are a world of humans. Of course, there's information, right, in blogs and videos and YouTube, and there's so many resources out there. But how do we truly get that, human connection and mentorship? Treat it that way. They are giving you that mentorship, which is totally normal to do. And really just ask yourself, is there anything else specifically that trips you up? You can go in prepared with an agenda if that helps. But yeah, again, really depends on which element, you're not feeling good with, and how can you work on that, hopefully with someone else, to find that level of comfort.
So I'm curious, from your perspective, when do you feel somebody should seek out a career coach? How do you know it's the right time? Is it before I want to make a transition? Is it at the time that I think that I want to do it? Or should I just sort of, I don't say play the market, but play the market on my own, and maybe I'm not
Yeah.
getting the results I want, and then I bring in the coach? And I guess maybe, it could be any of those situations, but I'm
Yeah.
curious for your perspective, where you feel like the optimal time is for somebody to bring that person in.
Great question. It depends. Some people say, I want to try to do what I can and then I get help afterwards. Some people say, I want to maybe use my time as wisely as possible. Like, I think people forget that there's a lot of best practices in job search. And I think people forget that career coaches exist. And so it's really up to you. Like, if you want to have another pair of eyes and ears, if you want guidance and support and accountability and resources to hopefully use your time wisely, a coach is here for that. A coach is also here for, like, the mindset, right? Maybe you're not feeling ready and you just need an open space to figure out how you feel and what's getting in your way. That's a great time to get support. Sometimes you just need to stay on track and need accountability to stay on top of job search. That's another reason and a benefit for a coach, but also the strategies and the tips and the frameworks of how do I go about job search properly. So it's totally a personal choice, but you got to see, how am I doing? How do I feel? What do I need? Right? It's simply there for support to enhance your process and your outcomes and your efficiency and your effectiveness. And really, you can use that time however you need it. There's going to be ups and downs. You might just need a session to vent and talk about the mindset. Maybe you have a rejection from a process that you just need to, or maybe you leave your company. That requires processing in and of itself if you were to leave an organization. So really just remember that careers are such a big part of our life. Like, we often seek out a therapist or a financial advisor or all the different areas of support. It's okay to have career support and support in terms of your professional journey, whether that's you have a goal or a challenge, really any and all areas. It's the same way you would seek out support with any other areas of life, essentially, right? So there's no perfect time or right time. It's really just whenever you need or want support or guidance. And, the other thing is just being proactive. So if you are thinking about a change, obviously doing exploration, as proactively as humanly possible. So you might even be in a role right now and you just want to advance and grow and get promoted along your path. But figuring out where you want to go is, the step number one to figuring out how to reach the next level. So, there's even moments where you can meet. I offer just even infrequently, quarterly or monthly, even if you just wanted another pair of eyes and ears to grow and advance. But if you're saying to yourself, I think I need a bigger change, as proactively as you can to figure out your direction. I always say the sooner you have clarity, the better, right? You want to figure out your ideal direction as soon as you can so that you can, optimize your current role or your next role to be in line with that intended direction as much as you possibly can. So, sooner the better with clarity, but there's really no right time, no wrong time. It's just, whatever feels good. And if and when you really are ready just for a little extra support.
As we get close to the top of the hour, I'm thinking one thing that we haven't really talked about is salary, compensation, benefits. I'm curious, in your practice, are you seeing more of people who are interested in taking the step up because they want to level up in terms of position or salary? Or is it more people who are just saying, like, this current job and path really aren't vibing with me and I need help finding the thing that does?
I mean, it's definitely both. And both are important, but I think sometimes there's like misconceptions about like industries or roles that are like hard to break into or impossible to break into, or like salaries and things like that. So bottom line is salary is super important. But what is a fit for you and what is interesting to you and what is aligned with you is also something we just cannot ignore. If you are going to want to grow and advance along your path, we have to think about what's going to go into your day to day, and is it going to align with your strengths and your affinities? Are you going to be great at it? Are you going to get great at it? How else are you going to get promoted, right? So we can't ignore who you are as a person. But absolutely both are super important these days. I mean, people are trying to be creative and figure out career paths. It is real that there are different salary ranges based on the role and the path that you go after, but it is just one component. You can't ignore who you are and what would I be doing all day, right? Sometimes people sometimes jump into like a boot camp or something because this role sounds like it's going to be great, but is it going to jive with you? Because if not, how are we going to pursue it, right? So we got to think about all the factors at once, and that's really what exploration is for, is to say, look, what factors are important to me? It's the day-to-day of the work, as well as salary, as well as other things, and how do I take all the factors about me and what I want and who I am and use that in comparison to the roles and the paths out there, and sort of do this little gathering of information in accordance with the factors that you want and make sense for you, right? So yeah, there's so much more, of course, we could talk about, but I'll sort of pause it there. And we are going to be back here on Thursday too. I'm sure you guys have many other sessions, but let me pull up quickly what we're talking about on Thursday. But Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, we're going to talk more about networking and interviewing and any and all Q&A that you have. So come back to join us again, and hopefully this was helpful. And yeah, we'll be back here Thursday. And I'm sure, Steve, you have other sessions going on beyond just the Thursday session.
Yes, in fact, I'll come to that in just a second, but since we have a little bit of time, I wanted to pull up your website address one more time. Those of you who had registered in advance to watch this webinar will get a follow-up email at the end of this week, which will have the link to Rachel's website. Lots of free resources there that she had talked about, blog articles, a free coaching call, and some other good stuff. So it's all there at iamwoken.com. I'll leave that up for a few more seconds, but again, it'll be coming to you in the email if you are if you had signed up to watch today's webinar. So Rachel, thank you so much. And I'm going to say goodbye to you and then go into just talking quickly about what's on tap for the programs for this week. But as you said, we will see you Thursday at 3 o'clock. Thank you. This was very, very informative, and I'm sure gave people a lot to think about, and will give them more to think about in 2 days from now. So thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Bye, guys.
And I'll just pull up our website, binghamton.edu/alumni. And as I said at the outset of the program, that's a place where you can find links to various things that we offer here at the Alumni Association to help you move ahead in your career. And as promised, I'd like to talk quickly about, before we sign off for today, the different things we have going on for the rest of this Binghamton Success Week. Tomorrow, Wednesday, April 19th, from 5:30 to 8:30, we'll be at the SUNY College of Optometry in Manhattan with a Metro New York career panel. So if you can find Bryant Park in Manhattan, we're right there. The SUNY College of Optometry is very nearby. 4 panelists, all alumni, are going to be speaking about career transitions, understanding the importance of networking, and you get to learn from the best in the career exploration business. The great thing about programs like we have this week is it's alumni helping other alumni. They're very, very passionate about what they do. They've reached a level of success in their careers, and they want to help you to move ahead. So definitely take advantage of it. If you're in the New York City area, that's going to be going on tomorrow, and we have a lot of people signed up for it. If you're registered for that event, we look forward to seeing you in a little bit more than 24 hours from right now. And then, as Rachel said, she will be back with us with another webinar on Thursday. That'll be in the 3 o'clock Eastern hour, so a little bit of a different start time than we normally have. Many of these are at noon. Thursday's program is going to be at 3 o'clock, and the title of that is Learn to Strategically Network and Lead a Compelling Interview. So if you didn't get a chance to ask her a question, you can contact her through her website, or just sign up for Thursday's program, or just you can watch it through the alumni Facebook page, and all of that stuff will be there for you. So thank you so much for joining us for today, and I look forward to seeing you on Thursday. So for Rachel Serwetz, I'm Steve Seepersod. Have a great afternoon, and we'll see you next time on the Binghamton Learning Network.